Welcome to another episode of Don't Be Lookup. We've got a special episode from DTSki this week, and we're super lucky to have Simon Wool. He's a fractional CMO for several different brands. And just without further ado, Simon, you want to just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you're up to and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all.
Yeah.
Super stoked to be here. DTSki Aspen. It's awesome. We just got off the mountain.
Yep.
A nice little run down from Bonnie's. But yeah, so my name is Simon Wool. I am a fractional CMO for a handful of different brands in the direct-to-consumer space. Pretty agnostic in terms of product, in terms of industry, in terms of vertical. But I guess really working on kind of scaling these brands up as much as possible, utilizing their team, utilizing media buying from my point of view, and really helping founders, CEOs, and heads of growth really grow the brands that they're working on. Call it more of a consulting type place, but I also do a lot of the media buying, do a lot of the creative strategy, kind of everything in between there. So, yeah.
Awesome. And how did you get to where you are today? You want to maybe give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, my first job while I was still in college, I worked for Barstool Sports. I was running all their paid media way back in the day. I moved to LA. I worked for Shazam.
Nice.
Early.
Shazam's still around?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did
it get bought by Apple?
So it was the first app ever in the Apple App Store, and then Apple decided to buy it.
Yeah.
So I was pre that. I didn't have any equity, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We didn't know back then.
We had no idea. But yeah, so I was there in LA for about a year and a half. I moved to Boston, where I worked at a couple different agencies. My buddy Alex and a few other people, we started a brand called Any Day Rosé. It was a rosé hard cider with Pat McAfee. Alcohol's a weird industry. It's really hard to sell. It's just very antiquated. You have to go through distributors. You can't do it D2C. We tried to do it D2C. It's really expensive to ship.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out. At that point, I moved to New York. I was working for an agency at the time called Rubik's. And after I left Rubik's, I went to a brand called Little Spoon, baby and kids food on subscription, which was I was the head of growth there. And then I left that and I went to Cometeer, and I was the head of growth at Cometeer. And I left Cometeer, went to Notum, which is the holding company that owned Notum, Package Free, Ivory Ellis, Something Navy, Cocoon. I think there's one more. So it was running all their brands, managing a handful of employees, and I was you know what, I can just do this on my own. If I can manage 5-6 brands and a handful of employees, I can do this by myself and not report directly to someone.
Yeah.
And was there a common thread throughout those experiences where, of course, you're now managing basically brands kind of on the consulting side? What did you see that actually convinced you that it made sense to kind of branch off? Was there a playbook? Was there something that you did?
I think after doing it for so long, I realized that a head of growth role can be a 40 to 60 hour role if you don't know what you're doing. But if you're very confident, you can make your changes, you have your reports structured, everything, you can really do that at scale and be able to make changes throughout the week and have calls and it's fractional because it's full time partially. I just found that I knew how to manage my time better, and I got honestly really bored working for one brand. I just had free time. I shouldn't have had free time, but it was okay, I went through all this data, I made all these changes, we're doing really well, everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing, what am I supposed to do with my time? So now it's okay, I can take on more work, and that's kind of how I discovered okay, I can take on more brands and really help them versus just one and that's all I know.
Yeah.
So it's now I get all this data, I get all this understanding from one that I can implement into the other. I test one landing page, oh, that works here, let me try it with a different brand. So a lot of cross synergy there is a way to put it.
So when you're starting a new role as a fractional CMO, do you kind of have a playbook for how you're looking at data specifically? And
totally.
Can you maybe talk through that?
Yeah, so the first week of signing on to a new client, the first thing, I'm not making any changes normally the first week. It's normally let me into your data, whether you're using Triple Whale, you're using Northbeam, you're not using any of them. Let me go through it. What's been working for you? What hasn't been working for you? what low-hanging fruit, like what are you doing that's not doing best practice-wise? Like I'll do a full audit. So I go through Facebook, I'll go through Google, I'll go through Klaviyo flows, I'll go through on-site, I'll go through their landing pages, like everything, and be like, here's what you're doing well, here's what you're doing bad, here's what I want to change, here's low-hanging fruit. And then week 2, we just start rolling it out like that.
And how do you assess the benchmarks? Because I know you have various companies, right? So you might have consumables, you might have apparel, you might have this.
Yeah.
So how do you assess the difference of what you can actually improve upon?
Well, so the benchmarks are typically, okay, you don't hire like a growth person unless like you're not really doing what you want to be doing, right? So like I'm always coming into brands that are like, hey, we're at like a 1.2 new customer ROAS. We want to be at a 1.8 by this time. How can we get there? So like in my head, it's like, okay, like it's not going to be an overnight change, like maybe like 20% month to month, but like there's going to be a lot of creative testing. So like we assume that 1 month will probably be down, and then if we get it, like we get some good creative, we can scale that up, maybe do a 1.4, kind of go from there. So it's like, it's different for every single brand, but the playbook, the audit, and like how like I look at it is really based on like, what are your goals? Where do you want to be at? What are you comfortable spending? What's your pain tolerance? Pain tolerance, I mean like, how much can I creative test without you being like, why is CPA up so much? I'm like, well, we're creative testing. So it's really like dependent on the brand and like what their goals are. But I typically, for almost every brand that isn't a subscription, I'll optimize for new customer ROAS. That's like new customer CPA, new customer ROAS, new customer AOV. Like I want new customer AOV to be way higher than new customer CPA, because then like technically you're profitable on first purchase if you're shipping and your cost of goods are low enough. So like if I can get there, that's a really good place to start to scale from. So the goal is get the CPA down, get the AOV up, and then in turn the LTV will also back itself out.
And you mentioned, some tools that they might be using.
Totally.
Do you bring in any tools after that first week? If you're like, hey, this is our standard toolkit that I come in with, or how do you think about like even what that first number is? Like ROAS can be very subjective depending on where you look at it, for instance. So how do you think about
okay,
it?
so channel by channel ROAS can be subjective, sure. But blended ROAS not, and new customer ROAS not subjective, because it's just spend over revenue.
Sure.
Like that one's not subjective. I prefer Triple L more than anything else. I use Triple L. Like my stack that I use for most brands is like Triple L, Marpipe, Klaviyo. Honestly, that's like some of my sites are using. Oh man, what's the name? The site speed upper.
Nostra?
Yeah, some of my brands are using Nostra. A lot of them all use different review sites. Like they're normally put in there. Yeah. Referral programs are always going to be different, but like if you're not a single product, I'm using Marpipe because like I want to like crank through catalog stuff and like really good for testing there. Klaviyo obviously for email. I haven't used SendLane. I've heard great things, but I've never touched it.
Yeah.
But Triple L is like my bread and like there were some contracts that I put together that was like, in order for me to sign this, like you have to sign Triple L. Like, and it's like I'm not even doing it as like an affiliate partnership. It's more just like this is the easiest way for us to see this data. Like Scott was talking about earlier, like Facebook data we look at like first click on click date. So like we're looking at like the freshest data. Like did you click that ad? I'm not looking at any view conversion data. Google is normally like matching almost 1-to-1 to Triple L data. Facebook is always going to be different. Klaviyo is going to be weird, especially on first click, because it's never going to be the first click, because if you're signed up on an email, you touch it somewhere else. So I think you just kind of have to look at Facebook on first click. You can look at Google on like blended attribution. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but like Google, we kind of exclude branded search from it. So looking at Google in terms of non-brand performance max with excluded brand keywords, still running some catch-all shopping stuff, running a lot of like dynamic. So like if we're running like to a specific sale, like I'll run dynamic to a specific like spring page or whatever, if you will, and then kind of go from there. But I think in terms of like looking at the data, it's like I try and be as consistent as possible with Triple L. It also makes my life easier because I can like Slack, you have all these different channels, but like Triple L, I can like rotate in between different brands, so it makes it really easy.
Do you work with any clients that have non-click channels as well?
Sorry.
Like TV, like anything like
so
that. You have to kind of...
No one is currently doing TV. I've worked with clients that have done TV in the past. It's hard attribution. Oh, I guess that's not true. I've done, I mean, not on TV anymore, but like out of home. We've run some out of home with specific like URLs. We've run it with specific promo codes. if we're doing like guerrilla marketing, like the wild postings, we'll use QR codes like to specific landing pages to track back. You can kind of see the lift there as well. So it's like, okay, if I'm running like a billboard in Atlanta and my sales in Atlanta are up 25% during that time period, like that I can attribute back to it as long as I'm not running more paid advertising in Atlanta in comparison.
Totally.
So like it's more just a lift test at that point.
Got it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you noticing any trends just from touching so many different companies?
So it's interesting. The biggest thing that I've been preaching with clients is like keeping things simple. I think the way that like when I come into a brand and I know nothing about their brand, it's the best time for me to make creative suggestions because I'm a consumer at that point. I'm not part of the brand. I don't know about the brand the way you talk about the brand. And I think the biggest thing is you don't want to talk about your brand in ads the way that you think about your brand. You want to talk about how consumers think about your brand. So you look at your reviews. You bring in somebody new and say, when you see my product, what do you see? And like kind of like take the 10 things they say and use those to create ads. I think keeping it simple, like keeping messaging correct from ad to landing page through checkout flow with upsells, just keeping it consistent. And then your email messaging, like just keeping everything consistent is the best way to do it. So simple, consistent. And I don't think you need to do anything crazy. And I tell this to brands a lot, like don't overthink it. Just it's very do play by the playbook and you'll do well.
On the topic of just testing and creative testing specifically, how long do you let these campaigns run for, and how much are you actually testing and iterating on until you're like, okay, this is actually the result, or you're letting the algo?
Yeah, so I mean,
play with it?
It's going to be dependent on spend levels, right? So if I'm spending $1,000 a day on a campaign that has 5 creatives, I'll know in 2 days. Like Facebook will throttle spend to 1 creative if you're doing it in ASC, which I test in ASC because I think it's the best way to do it. But like you can basically duplicate the campaign, remove that ad, and keep going. The whole point is like I want the algorithm to dictate where the spend goes because like if it's getting purchases and it's getting cheap purchases, throttle spend. If the algorithm is not doing it correctly, which it's not right now because Facebook is in a weird place right now.
What's
like,
going on with Facebook right now?
I'm seeing conversions between like the 5 to 10 a.m. window, no conversions between like 10 and 5, conversions between like 5 p.m. and 8, and nothing for another hour, and then create a like purchase after that. There's something broken with their ad product. I don't know what it is, but it's really
delivery or it's tracking or combination.
Still delivering during those time periods. Just conversions aren't coming through. Like it's consistent. Like, I mean, that's maybe like across like 3 brands. It's when you work with like 4 to 5, maybe 6 brands. Sometimes you see like a lot of fluctuations, and it's like some are going to be great, some are going to be bad. It's like yesterday, apparently there was an over delivery bug. Like one client like reached out to me and was like, "Are we over delivering?" And I was like, "We may be, but our performance is 2x better than we were the day before, so like I'm not going to touch it." There's just weird stuff going on with Facebook right now.
Are you changing your strategy at all, or just staying consistent?
Stay consistent. I am obviously still creative testing. I think look, we're all going through it right now. Like if you can just stick with it and kind of like push through. Listen, like it might not deliver a first click purchase on Facebook, but you running ads at the end of the day, long term, long tail, is going to help your business. Like it's going to like back out whether it's a direct purchase, whether somebody signed up for email. Like you'll see that down the line. You might not see it like that right now, but down the line, this will pay out tenfold.
And are you tracking those email signups and kind of more like the lead conversion events up into the purchase?
Tracking, yes. Optimizing for, no.
You're mostly still doing conversion-based campaigns.
Only conversion-based campaigns, yeah. I don't run anything other than conversion-based campaigns.
And
I never will.
Kind of back to like the meta topic and delivery into like election cycle, into like macro. How do you typically change the account structure? Think about that.
You don't.
Getting into that.
Listen, CPMs are going to go up. We all know that. It's Black Friday, Cyber Monday all over again. Like CPMs are going to go up. Like you just have to have good creative, and you have to be able to keep your CPMs consistent. If you're seeing like crazy spikes, like it's not going to be consistent. Everyone's going to go through the same thing, and I think that's like this is the whole keeping it simple. If I change up my whole structure and like go to something totally new that's like untested, I'm scared of what's going to happen. You can run sales, you can run like little discounts here and there, you can run like urgency type stuff. You can change up your creative, but I would not change structure in any way.
Do you think like a brand should think about their forecast would be just lower, or they have to overcompensate on the conversion side because they're getting, more expensive traffic, or how do you think about that?
I don't think so. I mean, like this is like what, maybe like the, 2nd, maybe 3rd election year that I've like worked through on Facebook. I don't know, like nothing has ever stood out to me as like, oh, it was an election year, it was like a bad year on Facebook. Like that's never been like something that I think about like that. I just know that there are going to be CPM spikes. When you see the CPM spikes, like you maybe pull back and spend a little bit on those days, but then there's going to be days where it's super low. Like, I mean, if you're not running political ads, like you're not really in a place where you're going to get impacted by political advertising, like where their spend is that much higher. I mean, you can play into it. You can play with election creative, like make little jokes about it. Like I have brands running like March Madness creative right now. It's just like making sure you're up to date with everything. Like make little jokes off of it.
Yeah.
Patriotic messaging. Kind of like what you do for like Memorial Day, July 4th sales. You can do it like
That's
during
just like
that
brand
election
awareness.
cycle.
That's just like a brand awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you have any suggestions for creative testing or any trends?
In terms of actual creative or how to test?
Getting to the creative and then also the testing part.
Yeah, so I mean, we listened to Dara Denny speak yesterday, and
Yeah.
she had a really great like presentation on creative testing. I again like to keep things simple, which like the first creative test I'll do if I'm like coming into a brand that's never done like real creative testing before is like, give me your favorite 5 images of your hero product, 5 to 10 images. All right, let's go through comments. Let's go through reviews. Let's find 5 headlines that stick out. So on those, like say 5 creatives, you're going to put 5 different headlines on each one. And we're going to put each one in a different ad campaign. We're going to test all 5 of them. When we find winners from each, we're going to roll all the winners into one big campaign. Now we have our stack of different headlines we know work, different ads, or like different images that we know work. Okay, now let's make value prop ads off of that and do that cycle again. You continue to test and then build out that like testing winners campaign, which is then your main campaign. So you continue to test and then put a winner in. Test, put a winner in. So you turn off the test, you roll another winner in. It's just a constant cycle of like keep your testing going, put another ad in, turn that off. Like just continuously cycle that. And if you can be consistent with that, like you'll have winning creative in like a month. Like good creative in a month.
Interesting. Yeah. Where does I mean, this has been a hot topic, of course, the AI topic. I feel like creative is like one of those categories that is part of that topic.
Yeah.
Where do you see it playing in, and where do you see it helping, hurting,
I
opportunities?
mean, like if you have the same image and you have 10 different headlines, or like 10 headlines and 10 images, like you use AI to just create that like that. I mean, that's essentially what Marpipe is doing with like DPA ads, right? So like
I actually don't really know anything about Marpipe.
So basically,
what is Marpipe?
So Marpipe,
I was acting like I did know what Marpipe did. I was like shaking my head. I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so if you're running like catalog ads, right? So like the carousels that are like showing like the products, like maybe you've shopped them before, like you're likely to shop it. You basically take the feed, the DPA feed, and feed it into Marpipe. What you can then do is like you've noticed all the ads that have like white backgrounds. Marpipe like changes all the backgrounds, and you can do it. You can like make different designs. It's like pulled in from Shopify. So if you have a discount going, it'll show you like how much percentage off. It'll show like the new price. There's all these different elements like you can like plug and play with it. I'd say like Replo, essentially for DPA ads, Canva for DPA ads, if you will. And so it'll do it. Say you have 1,000 SKUs. It'll do it to all 1,000 SKUs in 5 minutes. That's all AI doing that. Like you're not making a different design for each one. No designer has to sit down and do it. It just cranks it out, and then you can assign it to an ad like a DPA ad and just launch it immediately. So like that's an AI way of doing things. Like you're still going to be like testing it like in the human way of doing it, but like you should no designer should be making 1,000 different changes to 1,000 different product ads.
And do you think designers are the ones most at risk in terms of disruption?
No. I don't think that anyone is at risk. Like even like with ChatGPT, like you still need an editor. You still need to prompt it correctly. Mm-hmm. You still need to like if you're a copywriter, like ChatGPT should be your best friend, not your worst enemy. It's like you can write emails using ChatGPT, but it sounds robotic. Then how do you make it sound not robotic? How do you feed it a different prompt? Same thing with creative. Like you can feed it things. It's like, okay, like I want to move something here. Like AI is not gonna be able to do that. Like it's not gonna be able to make like it will eventually be able to make complicated, crazy ads. But like there still needs to be somebody that can like look at it and be like, okay, this needs to go here, this needs to go there. Like I think they should go hand in hand. I don't think anyone's at risk of losing their job over it. Mm-hmm. I think if anything, it's a tool to like make their job easier and better for them.
Yeah. Have you used any other tools like that you think are effective at actually like increasing efficiency, whether it's creative testing or creative even like generation, anything like that? The Marpipe example.
Marpipe one, not really. No, I don't really need one, to be honest with you. Like if you know what you're doing with creative testing in Facebook, like you don't really need a tool. Like to make the creative, maybe to do some copywriting, like I'll use ChatGPT here and there.
Are you doing like any TikTok testing as well, or any other channels with different formats, and are you using kind of any of those tools to help you expand up something pretty quickly?
Yeah, so none of my brands are really doing much TikTok. I do use ChatGPT to write like landing page copy. Like if I have like a specific angle, I'll like feed in a ton of reviews and be like, in these reviews, like what are the top things that stand out? And then like you can write like a 5 reasons why page based on that. So you can like feed it in like literally thousands of reviews and have it like pull out the top 5 and then have it create like 5 reasons why based on your website, based on like the customer reviews, and like have it like put together that copy and then build that into Replo. Replo is another one I use a lot of. So a lot of landing page building in that.
Got it.
Do you have any examples of creative that you like thought would not work and just like absolutely crushed?
Yeah. So there's this brand I work with called One Golden Thread. Basically, it's an apparel company. They make clothing that's super sustainable. It's made of tree fibers. Like incredible brand, incredible mission. They plant trees for like every t-shirt bought. I think tree shirt bought. Don't quote me on that. But they plant a lot of trees based on like purchase volume.
Yeah.
But when Dune came out, they have this product. It's called the Kairos Duster. It's basically a hoodie that's like has a hood, it has sleeves, but it's like long and it looks like a trench coat-ish, but it looks like something you'd wear in Dune. So we took these images that like were shot in a desert, so it looks like Dune-esque, like put like copy in like the Dune font onto these ads. And I was like, there's no way these work. It's the best ad in the account right now. It's still ripping. It's just a static ad with like, I think it says like planetary fibers or something. Like something like that. I was like, there's no way this works. It's absolutely crushing. I think it's just like take a chance, right? Like you can creative test something. If it doesn't work, you'll know pretty quickly. Like,
is that a learning maybe of like, kind of go with the zeitgeist at like the moment? So,
yeah, honestly, I think so. And especially because the product is fantastic, like absolutely incredible product. And like it looks like it should be from Dune. We don't have an actual partnership with them. We're not like,
they'll probably sue you if anything. They were like,
there could be a cease and desist, but there's nothing that like references Dune. Like we're not like using quotes. We're not like
just like font.
It's just like a font, but like the font's like a Google font. Like you can use that. Like,
so I remember I looked at a business when I was doing a roll up of Shopify brands, and they kind of timed. It was like knives, and it was like arcade knives, and they were timing it all with the releases of all these different games that would come out.
Oh, cool!
And every time it happened, they would spike in sales just dramatically.
Yeah, I think Ridge does a really, really good job of that. Like during the Super Bowl, I think they released like Chiefs wallets or something.
Oh yeah.
Like as long as you're like staying with like what's happening. Yeah. Listen, I think like anything.
So release a political, something.
Listen, you can
Joe Biden, Donald Trump, item, and see what happens.
Yes and no, because you'll get flagged for political advertising if you do that.
True.
You have to be.
All right, stay away from politics.
Stay away from politics, but you can make politicky jokes. You just can't sell politicky things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
You can
stay with the zeitgeist. Is the best way to put it. Is
there like a decision that you've kind of made with the brand that was like the most impactful decision? We kind of asked this a lot on the pod, where is there one transformational decision you've made by leveraging data, to make a change in the account?
So I don't think that there's like one that comes to mind immediately, to be honest with you, because like I'm looking at their data every single day and I'm making changes every single day. I mean, there's definitely been changes where I'm like, we've been running ads to this, like I come in, like you've been running ads to this landing page over the homepage. The homepage has a 2x better conversion rate. Why are you running ads to this? Oh, like it looks better. Well, it's like, no, like let's run ads to the homepage. Like, I mean, that's like a low hanging fruit thing, but right? Like if you're looking at the data every day, you know why something is working, why something's not working. I've never like looked at something and been like, oh my God, we're doing the exact opposite of it. Like, because it's like, most of the time these brands like have a very good idea of what they're doing. They just don't know how to scale it to the next level. Mm-hmm. So I'm not coming in and like, I'm not changing your business. I'm not changing your business plan. I guess like I worked on this brand LaFleur Bouquets, and I took it over from an agency who like really tanked it. They were running like, at the time they were running like 90% on Facebook, 10% on Google. And now we're running 70% on Google, 30% on Facebook. So I think like based on the data there and the scalability with it, I mean, they sell flowers, they sell preserved flowers that last forever. There's a lot of searches for very specific flowers, and they sell a lot of very specific flowers, and that's non-branded search. Because they're not looking for LaFleur Bouquets, they're looking for, say, peonies. But so we do so much non-branded search. We do so much Performance Max there. Removed all brand keywords from that.
What gave you the inkling to even like consider switching up that mix so
Well,
dramatically?
Every single campaign that they were running in the account was limited by budget. Like they could scale, and all of them were like hitting ROAS targets. But like the other agency had like throttled Facebook spend, which was running at like half the ROAS but way more volume. But I was like, I feel like we could switch this up. So I started spending more and more, and then Black Friday, like I was running on Facebook, but then Google was like cranking. Like then we're doing like Valentine's Day stuff. Like Valentine's Day was like 80-20 Google to Facebook, like crazy, which is like their Super Bowl, their Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That was just based on like, I think that was just really bad mismanagement of someone else running that ad account. But I mean, now the Facebook is like performing super well, has good volume, not anywhere close to that with Google though. I could probably scale it more, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's the category almost. Like you said, there's a lot of search intent probably for flowers.
Exactly,
on Google Brand.
Well, so it's like around Valentine's Day, around Mother's Day, and then like it's pretty consistent throughout the year. Like people buy flowers a lot.
Probably short consideration window as well, right?
Exactly.
You know, like,
I mean, they're pricey too, right? The AOV on this is around.
I mean, I know I
It's
search.
like
I search right in the bar.
is like $300 to $400 AOVs. Like if you think about it, like, I mean, if you look on their website, you could tell me that, right? Because like they're preserved flowers. They're in like really great like ceramic
it's like
or porcelain
the gold
vases.
ones, that have like gold flowers.
No, so you're thinking of those. That's Venus at Fleur. So that's like direct competitor. But
Got
like
it.
they both do roses. The differentiator is LaFleur is the only company legally allowed to sell preserved peonies. So like Venus has a really
loves peonies.
Yeah.
So.
She had some. I don't
Should
have
I?
a promo code to give out,
I
but
was
they're
about to say,
fantastic.
if you have a promo code, then maybe we'll
maybe
think
off
about it.
camera.
I'll just go abandon cart. I'll go in, I'll abandon cart.
Yeah, maybe off camera.
Yeah.
But no, so that was, I guess, like going back to it, like that was like a really big change. So I was like looking at the data, being like, I don't know why we're not spending in Google. Should be spending way more in Google. We can scale Google. So we did. It's kind of changed the business, like literally flipped.
And one other question for me, being kind of in the fractional side, how closely do you work with the organization's like finance function, for instance? Because that's been like a pretty common theme with us, where we're seeing the best kind of growth operators working directly with the finance operators.
It does not feel like I'm fractional at all. I'm in your Slack channel. Founders call me, text me, like I'm in weekly meetings, like with the whole team. I'll like talk to other team members. Like it is not like an agency client relationship. It is like you stick me in here and like I'll become part of your team and like you work with me, ask me questions. Like it never feels anything, like it doesn't feel fractional.
And do you feel like the finance function though, specifically?
When you say the finance function,
I mean like setting targets around the business, whether it's around the profitability
I mean,
of the business,
we're doing it together.
Inventory with the operations team, like how do you kind of align around the
So I'm not super involved in ops. I will be involved in like, I mean like normally I work with like COOs and CEOs, like talk about targets, talk about like goals, like I need to look at like shipping costs, like I need to look at like gross margin and like actually understand like what can we spend, what are we allowed to spend versus like what should we spend and like what does our target need to be in order for you to be at profitability. Is your goal to be at profitability at day one? Is your goal to be at profitability on second purchase, third purchase? It's like figuring out that with like based on like a 90-day LTV. So I'm not the one that's...
That's a really good point. It's like really just like ranging it to what they need.
Correct, yeah.
And then you could size that strategy like appropriately to that.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm always working directly like with other people to do it. Like this is not done in a silo. Like this needs to be like, I need other people's input because like, again, it's not my brand. This is someone else's brand that I'm coming in. I'm looking at the data as an outsider, but then helping you scale it to a point where it doesn't feel like I'm an outsider.
Makes sense. Last question for me. Like, when do you know you're ready to go and like your job is done as a fractional CMO?
Okay, so that's a really good question. And I typically tell people it's when you're spending over 300 or 400K a month on Facebook, you are going to be paying me. And this is another thing. I don't bill on percentage of spend. I bill flat fee. And then after a few months, it turns into like flat fee plus performance bonuses. But if we're spending consistently 300, 400K a month, you're paying me way too much in performance bonuses. You need to hire in-house at that point. And like then I've helped teams like hire in-house, like interviewing people that can fit this role. It's just like my whole point is like I want to grow these brands. Like I don't want to like it's not like a money grab. The whole reason it's a performance-based bonus versus a percentage of spend is because my incentives are tied to your incentives. Like, you make more money, I make more money. And if we're spending that much, it means we're hitting our targets. It means you're paying me a fat bonus that you shouldn't be paying me. You can just hire someone in-house to do that, because like I want these brands to grow and continue to scale. But like, if you're working with me at that point, it might be time to hire someone in-house.
Totally.
But yeah, that's kind of how I look at that. And I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Like, I want brands to be able to do that. And it's like, I call it more like a graduation than like anything else. Like. So, like, and I've done that, like, and I'm still like very friendly with a lot of these founders and like these like CEOs and stuff. Like, always good relationships there. And it's like, they'll come to me and they'll ask questions still, because like, I'm more than happy to give my opinion and like answer questions on that. So,
totally. Yeah. Speaking of opinions, where can people follow you to
oh yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Wymonsool, WIMONSOOL. It's just the W and the S of my name swapped. I really don't tweet much about marketing. I talk about like football cards and like stupid meme coins that I've been trading recently. But like, nah, you can follow me there. It's funny. You can go to my website, woolventures.com. You can book a meeting with me there if you want. But yeah, also always open for business if it makes sense on both ends. So anyone looking for fractional CMO, head of growth type role, I'm here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It was a blast.